single, resounding gunshot echoes through the marble halls of the presidential palace. A distant alarm wails. In the dim glow of corridor lights, Lieutenant General Solmain Ouedraogo crumples to the floor, crimson spreading across his immaculate uniform. June 9, 2025 in Ouagadougou. In the hushed darkness, palace security cameras captured every heartbeat of that fateful moment. At 4:12 a.m., the palace awoke to chaos. A decorated general, hero of the Sahel campaigns, lay wounded by a bullet fired by one of his own. Within seconds, red floodlights bathed the hall in an eerie glow as guards scrambled, fistfuls of keys jangling on belts. Moments later, Captain Ibrahim Traoré entered through the grand iron gates, his boots clicking on the polished marble. His face, usually composed, tightened with alarm as he took in the scene, bloodstains on the opulent rugs, the stunned gaze of the general's aide frozen in mid-call. Traoré's midnight blue dress uniform bore 3 silver stars. His hard-earned credentials as Supreme Commander of Burkina Faso's armed forces. At 36, he was the youngest head of state in West Africa, a leader forged in desert dust and battle. Barely a week earlier, he had returned from the triumphant rescue of 1,000 civilians kidnapped in Namentenga province. That operation, known as Liberation Dawn, had cemented his reputation, swift, precise, and merciful to the frightened hostages. But now, the true test came from within. In the war room beneath the palace, advisors gathered around a long ebony table. Coffee-stained binders, flickering holograms, and digital maps littered the surface. Colonel Ba, Chief of Staff, tapped a tablet and spoke in a low voice. "Sir, preliminary intercepts confirm Ouedraogo's involvement with Operation Eclipse since April 17. Financial records show $2.3 million funneled through shell companies in Lagos. His co-conspirators, 15 officers you personally promoted, are ready to move at dawn." Traoré exhaled slowly, steadying himself. Lantern-like screens displayed the names, General Cone, Colonel Sanogo, and others whose loyalty he'd once trusted. "They believed the old guard's promises over the people's will," he said softly. "Tonight, they will learn the true meaning of loyalty." Outside, Ouagadougou stirred. Vendors at the central market paused mid-call, guttural Arabic prayers drifted from mosque minarets, and the distant hum of traffic slowed to a cautious crawl. Anywhere else, the city would awaken at first light. Here, it held its breath. Operation Iron Resolve sprang to life on screens, and the room shifted from shock to purpose. Traoré's aides moved with practiced urgency, screens switched to live drone feeds, radio channels buzzed with confirmation, and maps flickered with unit positions. He voiced the objectives once, quietly, as much to himself as to his officers. Fortify the palace, seal gates, stack sandbags, post snipers on the rooftops. Strike the rebel garrisons in Pa and Bobo-Dioulasso before dawn. Unravel Operation Eclipse, trace every transaction and decrypt every message. A young corporal shifted at the edge of the group. His rifle rattled against his arm. For a moment, doubt clouded his eyes, the weight of what lay ahead pressed on his chest like a stone. Traoré noticed, stepped forward, and placed a firm hand on the soldier's shoulder. Without a word, he met the young man's gaze, transmitting a calm resolve. The corporal drew in a steady breath, his grip tightening. He was ready. Traoré tapped a button on his console, recording the conspirators' intercepted message word for word. "Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, the old order rises again," Ouedraogo's voice crackled in the earpiece. "The palace will fall, and a new council will govern. We'll send a message to the west, Burkina answers only to itself." Traoré's jaw hardened. He ended the recording. "Then we will answer back," he murmured, eyes fixed on the silent screens. As dawn broke behind the palace turrets, loyalist forces sealed every entrance. Guard dogs whimpered behind electrified fences, drones hovered like vigilant sentinels. By 6 a.m., Traoré convened his inner circle in the underground bunker, whose walls were lined with war metaphors, a fresco of Sankara's revolution, engraved commandments of duty. Each conspirator has a story, Traoré began, sliding a photograph across the table, Brigadier General Cohn, smiling in desert fatigues, Colonel Sanogo, clasping a Medal of Valor. We know what they've done for our nation, and what they plan to do now. We must reclaim the narrative. Major Diallo, the unflappable intelligence director, adjusted her glasses. Sir, intercepted messages reveal a secret landing strip near Dingware. On April 30th, a private Emirati jet touched down with white crates labeled agricultural supplies. Immediately after, Ouedraogo's team received unmarked pallets from a warehouse at the outskirts. Our forensic experts found hidden arms and encrypted radios inside. Traoré frowned, remembering his own travels through that region. Dingware was where families fled last year's drought. Who would send aid disguised as weapons? The answer hung unspoken: those who sought to seize power. The general's betrayal was more than ambition, it was a carefully financed plot with international shadows. At 9 a.m., as PS garrison rallied under the crackle of radio warnings, Colonel Ba led a squadron of armored Humvees across dusty highways. Their destination, the cantonment where Ouedraogo's troops had gathered. Radio broadcasts blared the fake proclamation: by decree of the National Recovery Council, Captain Traoré is removed. Power is vested in the Junta Transitional Council. Local villagers watched from behind mud brick walls as tanks rumbled by. Many carried memories of earlier coups, fear etched their faces. When loyalists arrived, swift action was crucial. Under the cloak of a sandstorm, Special Forces commandos stormed the command bunker at 2:45 a.m. Masks on, night vision goggles activated, they moved like ghosts. One by one, rebel officers were subdued. Tanks rolled into the courtyard, their 105mm barrels aimed at the main gate as a signal of authority. Within 30 minutes, PS rebellion was quashed without a single civilian casualty. He recognized the code. Only one person knew that detail, his sister, Mariam. He believed her dead, lost in the northern floods 3 years ago. Suddenly, a chilling doubt surfaced: had his own blood betrayed him? The first rays of the Sahel sun pierced the dusty sky as Captain Ibrahim Traoré emerged from his private study. In his hand, he held the photograph of his late father's broken pocket watch, a relic he had thought lost forever. The message accompanying it, simply, remember, had unlocked a childhood memory of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. He had a sister, Mariam, spirited away during the floods of 2022. He'd mourned her as a casualty of nature, never imagining she survived, and perhaps betrayed him. At 7:30 a.m., Traoré convened a secure video link with Major Diallo and Intelligence Chief Kouama at the Dingware field base. Months earlier, satellites had captured faint thermal blips in that region, suggesting an underground encampment. Drone pilots nicknamed it the Lotus Den. Now, Traoré needed answers: was Mariam alive in that remote valley? And if so, what drove her to turn against her own brother? Major, upload any image data we have on her last known location, Traoré ordered. Moments later, a still photograph appeared, a narrow canyon carved by flash floods, flanked by eucalyptus groves. Tents and makeshift huts clustered by the riverbank. On the far side, a guard tower flew a flag unfamiliar to Ouagadougou's officers, a crimson lotus on black. The Lotus Den is more than a sanctuary, Diallo explained. It's a training camp. Our analysts believe it's where ex-rebels and mercenaries converge under a banner of vengeance. If Mariam is there, she's no longer the child he remembered. Traoré felt a pang of regret, but steel tempered his resolve. Prepare Operation Echo Memory, he said. I go with the reconnaissance team. I must see for myself. At 1400 hours, Traoré boarded a grey Mi-35 gunship with a platoon of special operators. The rotors chattered like cicadas as they lifted off from Ouagadougou's airstrip. Below, the city shrank into a patchwork of red roofs and green baobabs. 2 hours later, they hovered above Dingware's parched valley. Infrared cameras revealed clusters of heat signatures, far too many for a simple refugee camp. "We land in 15, the pilot announced. Traoré checked his sidearm and tightened his gloves. Memories of Miriam's childhood laughter filled his mind, tempered by the cold fear that she might now aim a rifle at him. They touched down on a rocky plateau outside the encampment. The special team disembarked silently, forming a U-shape as Traoré advanced toward the main entrance, a crude archway of driftwood and barbed wire. 2 sentries, armed with AK-47s, exchanged whispered words before spotting the presidential insignia on Traoré's uniform. Their eyes widened. "Captain on the move." One hissed into a radio forged from salvaged parts. Alarms shrieked. Within seconds, more guards poured from tents, weapons raised. Traoré raised a gloved hand. "I come alone," he shouted, voice amplified by the wind. "I seek the truth and my sister. Miriam, if you're here, reveal yourself." For a heartbeat, the camp stood frozen. Then, a voice cried out from the shadows, "Brother." A slender figure stepped forward, sun-bleached hair wrapped in a red scarf. Miriam's green eyes, once wide with innocence, now brimmed with iron resolve. The gunfire ceased. Miriam dropped her rifle, but her guard did not loosen. Traoré approached slowly, each step heavy with the weight of their shared history. He knelt to meet her gaze. "You survived the floods," he said softly. "I believed you lost." She swallowed hard. "I survived, yes. But my world drowned. Father died. Mother sickened. You were away, saving Namentenga, while we perished here. I found a new family among the Lotus fighters. They gave me purpose, brother. They taught me we're the children of broken promises. I betrayed you to avenge them." Traoré's heart thundered. "Miriam, they fed you lies. Burkina is our home. We rebuild together." "Together," she interrupted. "You rebuild their palaces while my people starve. Your reforms line the pockets of foreign generals. That lotus flag stands for the dispossessed. They believe in me, they follow me." At that moment, a militia lieutenant raised his rifle, aiming at Traoré. Miriam gasped and flung herself in front of her brother's chest, taking the bullet in her shoulder. She collapsed to the dusty ground. Time slowed. Traoré yelled, "No," and surged forward, scattering guards. In a blur of motion, he disarmed the lieutenant and cradled Miriam's head. Blood seeped through her scarf. "Hold on," he whispered, pressing a hand to her wound. "I won't lose you again." Behind them, Major Diallo's voice crackled over a secure channel, "Sir, we've decrypted the Lotus Den's communications. They're funded by shell groups linked to the same Emirati financiers backing Operation Eclipse. They manipulated your sister, Miriam, to fracture your inner circle from the inside." Traoré's jaw clenched. "So it was always a ploy, use Miriam's hatred to weaken me. They never cared for her cause." He signaled the reconnaissance team. "Secure the camp," he ordered. "No one leaves the valley. Protect my sister." In the next tense hour, loyalist troops descended into the Lotus Den, cordoning off tents and disarming fighters. Some resisted fiercely, others surrendered when they saw the presidential insignia atop Traoré's armored vehicle. Under midday's blazing sun, the camp fell quiet. Miriam lay on a stretcher, eyes closed. Traoré knelt at her side, guilt and relief warring in his expression. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I should have been here. I should have known." She groaned, eyelids fluttering. "They told me you'd abandoned us. But seeing you now, I remember who you are. My brother." Her hand found his. The moment was fragile, born of love, betrayal, and the possibility of redemption. The aftermath of the Lotus Den raid rippled through Ouagadougou like a sudden storm. By mid-morning on June 12, news outlets across Africa splashed headlines, "President Traoré's sister among coup plotters." social media erupted with outrage, sympathy, and conspiracy theories. Did Traoré know of Mariam's existence? Could he trust anyone in his inner circle? At the palace, Traoré faced his toughest audience yet, the Burkinabe public. On a raised platform overlooking the Place de la Nation, he delivered an impromptu address to thousands gathered behind security barriers. Flanked by General Diarra and UN envoy Nadia Diop, his silhouette was small against the vast crowd. "My people," Traoré began, voice unwavering, "today we confront not only traitors in our ranks but the pain of a fractured family. My sister sought justice for the forgotten. I sought peace for our nation. In that tension lies our path forward." He announced the formation of a National Unity Commission, inviting citizens to voice grievances and propose reforms. Tribal chiefs, former rebel leaders, and youth activists were invited to participate. In the corridors of power, some advisors warned that pardoning Mariam would appear weak. Others argued her story could humanize the government. Traoré decided on a middle path: Mariam would stand trial, but her testimony would shape the commission's agenda. Under the watchful eye of palace doctors, Mariam's wound healed swiftly. By June 13, she was conscious, though pale. Traoré visited her in the medical ward, a wing of the palace converted into a field hospital. The ivory walls were lined with messages of hope. "Justice and mercy, one heart, one nation." "I will testify," Mariam said softly, her voice hoarse. "I will speak the truth. But promise me, promise you will listen." He nodded. "I promise." Meanwhile, Major Diallo and Justice Minister Ruamba gathered legal teams to prepare the public trial. Evidence was consolidated: videos from the palace cameras, intercepted communications, forensic analysis of the Lotus Den weapons. A special tribunal was scheduled for June 14 in the National Stadium, chosen for its capacity and symbolic significance. June 14, 2025, at National Stadium around 9 a.m. Under a cloudless sky, the stadium's 20,000-seat stands filled with soldiers, citizens, and international observers. High-ranking judges, wearing dark robes with gold trim, sat beneath a canopy emblazoned with the national seal. Mariam, escorted by palace guards, ascended the dais, flanked by Traoré. The prosecutor opened. Mariam Traoré stands accused of conspiracy and providing material support to hostile forces. Evidence will show she passed intelligence to armed mercenaries and facilitated weapons shipments. A holographic display projected bank records and drone footage. When it was Mariam's turn, she stepped forward, eyes fixed on the crowd. Her voice, amplified by the stadium speakers, rang out, "I acted from anger and fear. I was betrayed by my losses. But I see now the pain of my brother, the sacrifices he has made. I ask forgiveness from the families of those I hurt. I beg the nation to unite, not divide." Her testimony brought murmurs of shock and empathy. Tribal elders wept openly, students waved placards reading, "Reunite our nation." International envoys nodded in recognition of her bravery. After hours of hearings, the judges retired to deliberate. At 4 p.m., they returned. Their verdict: Mariam would be pardoned on condition of 5 years of community service and full cooperation with the National Unity Commission. The crowd erupted in a mixture of stunned relief and jubilation. With Mariam's pardon, Traoré seized the momentum. He announced on national television. Reconciliation councils in every province, co-chaired by local leaders and youth representatives. Agricultural relief fund of $50 million for drought-affected regions, managed transparently and audited by civil society groups. Military Reform Act, increasing pay and benefits for frontline soldiers and establishing channels for grievances. Analysts noted this pivot blended strength and compassion. Traoré held traitors accountable, yet extended mercy where division threatened to scar the nation's soul. By the morning of June 15, Ouagadougou pulsed with renewed energy. Market stalls overflowed with millet and sorghum barrels, children played soccer in the streets, and university gates opened to bright-eyed freshmen. Traoré watched from the presidential balcony, the cityscape sprawled before him like a living tapestry. He held the dossier marked Operation Eclipse, complete files, its seals broken to reveal the blueprint of the coup plot. An urgent knock summoned him. Minister Ruamba entered, carrying a binding draft of the National Unity Commission's first proposals. "We have over 1,200 submissions from across the provinces," she reported. "From infrastructure projects in the West to educational programs in the Sahel. The nation is speaking, Mr. President." Traoré smiled. "Then we shall listen. Let us turn these voices into action." At 10 a.m. on June 16, the Unity Forum convened on the grounds of the old military academy. Over 500 delegates. A mosaic of tribal chiefs, former insurgents, youth leaders, and civil society activists, gathered beneath white tents. Traoré walked among them, shaking hands and offering reassuring nods. He paused to speak with a farmer from the Untold province whose crops had failed during the floods. Together they sketched a proposal for a new irrigation scheme. Later, at 2 p.m., Traoré addressed the forum, "Your voices will guide our nation's destiny. No decision will be made without your counsel. We stand as one people, forging a future from our shared strength." Applause echoed across the academy grounds, carrying a promise of collaboration. Less than a week later, Traoré traveled to Bobo-Dioulasso for the Sahel Resilience Summit. Held June 19 to 20 at the Villa Sankara Conference Center, the summit drew heads of state from Mali, Niger, Chad, and representatives from the African Union and UN. The agenda: joint counter-terrorism measures, climate adaptation plans, and economic integration strategies. On June 19 at 9 a.m., as he welcomed President Ibrahim Traoré of Mali, Traoré took the opportunity to spotlight Burkina's recent trials and reforms. "My sister stood accused by her own people, and yet we chose justice tempered by mercy. Let that example guide us." The room fell silent before breaking into applause. Diplomats and journalists alike noted the rarity of such candor on the international stage. Over 2 days of closed-door sessions, Traoré negotiated a landmark agreement. Joint Sahel Task Force, 10,000 troops pooled from member states, operating under a unified command to secure border regions. Green Corridor Initiative, $200 million commitment from international partners to build climate-resilient infrastructure, including dams and solar-powered wells. Free Trade Zone Pact, reduction of tariffs on goods moving between Sahel states to boost commerce. On the summit's final day, June 20 at 4:30 p.m., leaders signed the Ouagadougou Accords. Traoré stood at the podium, flags of 5 nations behind him, and declared, "Today, we bind our destinies not in fear, but in shared hope. Every grain of sand in the Sahel will witness our unity." A crescendo of cheers filled the hall, broadcast live across Africa. Returning to Ouagadougou on June 21, Traoré was greeted by a jubilant crowd at the airport. Thousands lined the runway, waving flags and shouting his name. A convoy drove through the city, passing murals depicting Mariam's redemption and the Unity Forum's first meeting. That evening, the Place de la Nation hosted a grand concert. Performers sung songs of reconciliation, dancers twirled in colorful attire. Traoré joined his sister, now participating in a rehabilitation program, in releasing sky lanterns symbolizing forgiveness and renewal. As the festivities wound down on June 22, Traoré addressed the nation one last time in this chapter. "The coup plot sought to fracture our bonds, to pit brother against brother. Yet we emerged stronger, bound by the promise of justice, compassion, and unity. My sister's courage to stand before you all showed us that healing begins with truth." He paused, letting the words settle. "Our journey continues. The lotus den is ashes, but vigilance remains. Together, we will build schools, restore roads, and nurture the hopes of every child in Burkina Faso. This is our legacy, and it starts today." Above him, the Burkinabe flag fluttered, a vivid emblem against the twilight sky. Late on June 23, in the solitude of his office, Traoré penned his reflections in a journal, a practice he started during early deployment. He wrote of his sister's laughter, the crowd's roar in Bobo Dioulasso, and the faces of farmers who believed again. He closed the journal, its pages filled with plans, the next Unity Forum in Kédougou, infrastructure surveys in the east, and proposals for a national education overhaul. But beyond the grand strategies, he inscribed a single line: trust, once broken, demands constant tending, but from broken hearts grow the strongest nations. As the night deepened, palace lights shimmered across the courtyard. For Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the battle for Burkina was won not with bullets alone, but with the unbreakable bonds of family and nation, an enduring testament to the power of unity in the face of betrayal.